And we are live. Hi, everybody. Good evening, JMMB family. All welcome, welcome again. Team JMMB is happy to have you here for another JMMB Goal Getter live stream webinar. We've been so happy and so excited and really very gratified to be able to share all of these live streams with you, and we are happy to be presenting another special live stream. Hi Odian, how are you? Welcome. Real MVP, first person in the comments from Facebook. We're happy to have you here, folks, and this topic tonight, of course all our topics are special, but this topic tonight, we're very happy to be bringing it to you in conjunction with some more fabulous guests. Every webinar we have some awesome guests. Hi Shanique, we have some awesome guests, and tonight's topic is going to be very special because we're really going to be driving at the heart of what it means to try and cope in the midst of this crisis. So we've covered a slew of topics in the past, talking about small business and managing your debt and helping to keep your investments on track, to building and monetizing your personal brand online. So we've been talking about a slew of topics, but as we continue to go through the deepening of this crisis, we thought it very prudent to have a serious conversation about how to help you, our viewers, to cope in the midst of the crisis. And that's why we're here tonight. So we're very happy to have you. Hit us up in the comments. We already have Odian and Shanique already telling us hi and that they're excited. Thanks for joining us. Tell us where you're watching us from. We normally have a nice local and international contingent of people. Hi, Joan. Feel free to drop a comment, say hi, tell us where you're watching us from. And again, folks, as always, call somebody, text them, WhatsApp, tag them, tell them they need to come right here. We think this is a topic that everyone can benefit from, because the reality is everyone has been impacted by this crisis in some way, shape, or form. And there's a lot to get through tonight. So I'm going to jump right into introducing you to our fabulous guests tonight, all ladies tonight. So sometimes we have all men, sometimes we have all ladies, sometimes we have a mix. What can I tell you, people? It is what it is. Hi, Dean. Thanks. Hi, great to see you. Montego Bay in the house. Love it. So, guys, here's what it is: coping in crisis. And I'm going to introduce to you our awesome guests. First up, we have a clinical psychologist who's going to be taking us through the motions of what she believes we can do to help cope mentally and emotionally, or to support a loved one to cope mentally and emotionally through the crisis. She is a friend of JMMB because we've partnered with her on a prior occasion as well. She is Sonia Winter. Hi, Sonia.
Hi there, Carrie Ann. Hi, JMMB family.
How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity.
Great. So we look forward to hearing from you. Right. So that's Sonia Winter. And then we have, for the physical side, because of course, coping is not just about the mental and the emotional, right, people? It's also about the physical, because if we don't have healthy bodies, you're starting off on the wrong foot anyway. You know, we need to do what we can to stay healthy. So we have a health coach here with us. You may know her if you follow her on social media. She is Natalie Murray. Hi, Natalie.
Hey, Carrie Ann. Hey, JMMB family. Thanks so much for having me tonight.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you as well. And then last but not least, because when we talk about coping, we tend to talk about stress, right? And let's just keep it real. A lot of us are under a lot of stress right now in some way, shape, or form. And we have a therapeutic yoga teacher. Trishan is here with us, who is going to take us through some nice stress-busting techniques, and we're looking forward to that. Hi, Trishan. Welcome. You're muted.
Hi, good night, everybody. Good night, JMMB family. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Trishan. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you. Okay. All right. So this is how it's going to flow, guys. And again, thanks for the comments. Hi, Tony. Nice to see you. Hi, Odette, Raquel. I'm loving all of my regular folk who tune in and some new folks. Hi, Andrew. How you doing? Hey, Vivine, Team Ochi, always in the house. Love it, love it. Thanks for joining us, guys. It's going to be an awesome session. And again, there's still time to tell your family and friends to join us. So how we're going to do it, guys, we're going to split up. So I introduced each of our 3 guests. We're going to have conversations with each of them. And then we're just going to get right started with Sonia. So Sonia is going to be going through the motions with us, as I said earlier, about how to deal mentally and emotionally with this crisis. And Sonia, this is a huge deal, because what we've seen is an impact from this COVID-19 pandemic that has arrived on the shores of Jamaica for some time now. But I keep saying it almost every week, whereas we were anxious perhaps about the potential health impact of what COVID-19 would have had on Jamaica and Jamaicans and even the individual, him or herself. What we've seen is something I don't think any of us bargained for. The economic and financial impact in particular, lost jobs, closed businesses, reduction in sales, and even just the impact of schools being closed for a protracted period. Now, for the rest of the school year, that's it, folks. You're going to be on your own with your children or the teachers trying to think. It's really, and then the quarantining and the lockdowns and the curfews, it's really thrown a lot of people for 6. And then in the midst of it, there is uncertainty, because we've seen conditions being implemented from before we even had 10 cases. Now we're almost at 500. So we don't even know when this thing is going to pass,
That's right. That's right.
Whole element of uncertainty. So my first question to you is, how do I know whether I'm coping in this crisis or not? I mean, are there some triggers or things I need to look out for either in myself or in my loved ones to know that, boy, I probably need to get a handle on this?
Okay. Carrie Ann, that introduction is quite comprehensive. And I think you've highlighted the fact that the coronavirus really brings 2 health-related problems into our midst. The first one is the illness caused by the virus. And we know the symptoms of that. But the second health-related problem is the anxiety and panic that this virus has triggered in the minds of everybody. The anxiety and the panic, which is the second health-related problems, less talked about, but guess what? It's even more widespread than the virus itself. And the truth is that that health problem is probably likely to persist much longer than even after the virus has gone. And the anxiety is creating for a lot of people panic. That's what I'm seeing. So we're seeing things such as actual panic attacks that people are having. So those are some of the most dramatic symptoms that you will see. And for those of us who aren't aware, the symptoms of a panic attack include physiological symptoms, shortness of breath, tightness in your chest, stomach aches, headaches, nausea, dizziness, tingling in the arms, feeling like you're choking. We've had instances of people just feeling like they're going to die right there immediately, and then, of course, even passing out in some cases. So those are the more florid, as we call it, symptoms that one can see. But then, because this is anxiety that's over a protracted period, okay, people can also develop more long-term physiological symptoms like ongoing headaches, irritable bowels, that sort of a thing. So when your body just starts acting up, then you know that you're really probably not coping very well. Apart from panic attacks, we're seeing signs of things like depression as well, feelings of hopelessness and emotional problems, a sense of intense worry and ruminations. And then that's affecting people's behavior. So when you see, your loved ones being perhaps a lot more irritable or aggressive than they usually are, acting terribly out of character, they may be withdrawn or staying away from the family more so than usual, constantly crying, having very inflated responses to what appears to you to be small triggers, so their response doesn't seem to match the situation that's going on. Things like nightmares as well for some people, and then of course the unhealthy efforts to cope, such as drinking or smoking or abusing substances, things like that. All of those are red flags to look out for, that this whole pandemic is having an emotional impact on somebody that you care about, and they're not handling it very well at all.
Thank you. So, I mean, there clearly, as you say, a myriad of responses, from probably the most overt and obvious to the not so obvious. So, given that context, what general tips or advice would you give to someone to cope with the overall uncertainty that's in the air around this crisis and the impact that it's having?
Now, human beings are sophisticated animals, eh? So whenever there is uncertainty and risk, we do have very powerful emotions that tell us that. And but the thing is that, so anxiety is certainly an appropriate emotional response, but it can become very paralyzing because we feel so out of control. And a lot is being said about contemplating coping in three important categories. And that's in terms of thinking of coping, in terms of how you think, in terms of your emotions, and in terms of what you do. So let's start with thinking, for example. It's very important to be clear about, or to be aware of how you're thinking about this virus, if you are to avoid some of the common errors and pitfalls that can induce even more anxiety and more hysteria. So it's important to therefore think about things that you can control in this situation, okay? Like how much you're taking in information about what's happening, observing the statistics, making sure that what's influencing your thinking is reputable information that will help keep you safe more than anything else. It's important to notice when you're starting to ruminate on automatic negative thoughts only, going over and over and over, and you're starting to filter out positive information and just hang on to negative information that you're receiving. And that's why it's very important to be careful about where you're getting your information from and what your diet of that information about this pandemic is like. Let's focus on the second one. The second one is feeling, and that's requires that you be aware of the emotions that you're feeling, aware of them such that you can label them. Because the thing about emotions is that they can often be masquerading as facts or behaviors, and then that can just send us off the deep end. So for example, you might, because you're feeling a sense of hopelessness, which is an emotion, you may think that everything is hopeless. And those are two very different things. So to the extent that you're able to acknowledge what you're feeling, probably by talking to somebody about what you're feeling and listening to them as well, is one of the most powerful ways to be aware of what you're emotionally feeling, so that you're able to separate it from the information of the facts of what's happening around you. And then finally, the doing. So we've talked about the thinking and the feeling already, but the doing is very important. And there's a lot more publicity, thank goodness, about what we can actively do now. What behaviors should we be doing? And, that includes things like making sure that you're exercising, that you're eating right, that you're trying to get your routine of sleep. You're sticking to your routine of sleep, that you're trying to create a schedule, that you're trying to connect with other people, that you are doing things that you're on. Of course, the most important things, the things that you're doing is the health related things. You're washing your hands properly. You're wearing a mask if that's what you're being told to do. You're social distancing. You do things that can help, that you have control over, and that can make the situation better. So those are the three categories that seem to help people remember what to do. It's be aware of your thinking. Notice when you're overgeneralizing, when you're just filtering out positive thoughts and reproducing and ruminating only on negative thoughts. Be aware of your emotional state and discuss it with someone else so that you can separate what you're feeling from what is happening around you. And finally, the doing. Take on activities that help the situation. Be safe. Um, take on health related safe behaviors. Observe the protocols. Introduce structure into your life and into the life of your family. Very important. And connect as much as possible. So those are some of the things, coping mechanisms.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And as you're talking, we think of the children, and children we say are very resilient. And, before I ask the next question, I just want to acknowledge some people who have joined us as well. Hi, Natasha. How are you doing? Boy, hair, nails, and face tonight. Welcome back. Hi, Adasa. Hi, Jermaine. Good to see you guys. And guys, in the comments, we'd love to hear how you're coping. I think this is also an opportunity to have an awesome forum where we're sharing ideas of things that are working for each of us as we try to cope in the middle of the crisis. But back to the next question, Sonia, because we do have a few more to go through, is the whole matter of children. So, of course, children, I have two, a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and there is that impact on children that sometimes we neglect to pick up on. What tips do you have for parents in terms of helping them to pick up if there's an issue, and what tools can they use to support them?
Okay. Carrie, you are right that children are pretty resilient and most of them are managing well, reports show, with the support of their family members and their parents and so on. Some children, though, already have some predisposing situations that make them more prone to suffering from not coping with this situation, such as maybe already having difficulty with anxiety or depression, or our teenagers, some of them are exhibiting suicidal behaviors even from before COVID. There are a number of children who would have had prior traumatic experiences or abuse or even family instability. Then, of course, there are those children who have actually lost loved ones. All of these are things that are going to predispose them to being overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed by the anxiety. The way you can know that that's happening is by noticing most of the symptoms that I've already mentioned. But in addition, children, when not dealing with anxiety well, can tend to regress. So if your child is at a certain age and they suddenly start bedwetting or sucking their thumb, or are unusually clingy, maybe having difficulty with their sleeping, loss of appetite, afraid of the dark, but regressive behavior, withdrawing. But for elementary and high school adolescents and so on, then you might see aggressiveness with a lot more withdrawing. There are nightmares that are coming up as well. Physical symptoms as well. People are somaticizing their emotional content. So having a lot of headaches again, and dizziness, that sort of a thing. So it's very much similar symptoms as you might see in an adult, with the addition that they tend to regress in some way, shape, or form. And that tells you that they need additional support.
Thank you. And what are some of the resources available, I guess, as a parent to just kind of help them cope? If you could give us a quick idea.
Again, a thing that I think has become very clear. One thing is to be very sensitive about how you yourself as a parent or guardian is handling or responding to this pandemic. So you might be talking to your partner or talking to other adults. Be aware of how you're complaining or processing information in front of the children, because they're going to model us. They're going to model what they see, and they're going to take their cues from us. So it's very important to be aware of how you yourself are responding when in their presence, number one. Again, if you can help them with structure, for some children, depending on their ages, it's a little harder for them to stick to a rigid structure, especially when they're at home and there are a lot of other distractions at home. But to the extent you can introduce structure into their lives, a regular bedtime, a regular work time, a regular work area is fantastic. Also, a wonderful thing is helping them to think about other people as well. So to the extent you can get kids to talk to kids about maybe how grandma is feeling, what she'd love to hear from you, call her and get them to extend themselves and show compassion and gratitude for other people. That's great. There are a number of websites as well that have activities for kids, coloring books, animated storybooks. The World Health Organization, the American Psychological Association, there's a lot of material out there that can help children process this information and what's happening around them, that parents and guardians can access. To the extent you can do fun things as well, try to see if you can focus on the positives, like, this gives us a time to hang together as a family. Let's do something fun together. I've been hearing moms talking about spa days for the daughters, or or for the sons as well, let me say, but trying to do fun things incorporated into your schedule with the kids also can be very soothing and therapeutic for them.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I appreciate those nuggets because, as you said, children are resilient, but we do have to still be sensitive to the cues uh,
Hmm.
of what possibly could be there, and managing the conversation around them too. I thought too was a very valuable point because sometimes they will
Absolutely.
suck up. They're like sponges, as you know. They will suck
That's
up
right.
stuff. Like I heard my 7-year-old talking about, if mommy dies from corona or grandma dies, because they hear the thing that older people, especially if you have underlying conditions, are at higher risk of dying. And I'm like, she just gets that. And I'm like, wow.
Right.
So,
And Carrie, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because a very important thing to do as well is not shut them down. Help them to recognize what they're feeling, whatever they say. Help them to explore what it is they're thinking about, what made them think that way. How is it affecting you? Do you feel frightened? What do you think you're going through? But helping them to have an awareness of what they're going through, very, very, very important right now, and helping them to come to terms with emotions and helping them to understand emotions are good things. Confront them, look at them, they help us navigate the world,
thank you so
and
much.
as I said, don't shut them down a lot of times, and shutting them down can be subtle or overt, and it's a knee-jerk thing, like, Carrie, your daughter brings up death, and because so many parents want to protect you, say, no, don't be silly, don't even forget about that, don't think about that. No, 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 that's a signal to them, I really have something to worry about here. So
Mhm.
as much as you can explore these things with your children, that can be very powerful.
Absolutely, thank you. Now, just a slight shift. Now, what one of the outcomes of this COVID-19 crisis and what it has done is that, of course, in a bid to contain the spread of the virus, the government has implemented a lot of conditions to restrict movement and to encourage social distancing. And a lot of it has to do with curfewing and quarantining and locking down and what have you, all the different adjectives, which has
Hmm.
reinforced a lot of us to live in virtual isolation. And let's be clear, isolation doesn't have to be applied to anybody who's single and living alone, perhaps. It could be in isolation, quite frankly, with your family members. You're locked up with your family. It could be locked up with a spouse, locked up with a parent. You're talking about a real shift in your lifestyle. I know for me, it's been very difficult because for me, it's really about a loss of freedom. I can't move around and go where I normally would like to go. It's a birthday and you normally go to dinner at some restaurant. Forget that. So, how do you recommend how people manage this change in their lifestyle and what this whole contained living has brought about?
Hmm. You know what, Carrie Ann, you have highlighted the fact that human beings have what we call core yearnings, a set of core yearnings, of which having some control over our life, our environment, um, our actions is a powerful core yearning that human beings have. And when that's taken away, that leads us to a huge sense of distress. So there's that, number one. There's also that human beings, as you said, are social animals, so I mean, the most profound or the most intense hermit or introverted person does not thrive well with extended periods of being isolated and on their own. So those two realities clashing at the same time really puts us under a lot of emotional tension. And what's important again is to recognize that in our effort to focus on the things we can't control, we often lose sight and lose control and miss paying attention to the things we can control. And those things include what we actually do while indoors. We can control the probability to some extent that we're going to catch the virus. We can be safe at home. We can teach our children about washing hands, about social distancing. Those sort of things help. And focusing on the fact that I have some control and this is what I can control. And if I control this, it will make a difference. Again, in terms of being afraid, isolated, the funny thing is the pandemic has somehow forced us to be physically isolated, but it's given us the opportunity to connect virtually. At first I thought that I would be very inaccessible to my clients because they wouldn't be able to come and see me. But now it turns out that I'm considerably more accessible, as the internet and all these different platforms gives us the opportunity to connect one-on-one and in groups. That is very powerful. There's a lot of PR about it, about having these parties or having dinner together online with friends or what have you. That cannot be over publicized, because at the end of the day we are social and these connections matter. And at the moment, the best that we can do is connect virtually. So it's important to just capitalize on that.
Thank you. And I love the way you said you talk about looking at things that we can control, and also just even looking at how a shift in perspective can help. One of the popular phrases that I see on social media when people are talking about, quarantining and curfewing, and boy, I'm stuck at home and I can't go anywhere. And people are always reminding them, don't say you're stuck at home, say you're safe at home. Because
Yes,
it has to be there.
absolutely. I like that. That's my mantra. I'm going to use that. Carry
Yes,
on.
yes, you're safe at home. You're not stuck at home. I really just want to acknowledge everybody in the comments who have been really giving some great feedback and even things that they've been doing to cope. Of course, we saw Natasha talking about humor and adding that to her list of things that help her to cope in the midst of this crisis. It's really awesome. Raquel just coming in from Facebook saying daily walks in her backyard, to help her connect with nature and so on, bringing in things from her filling up her lungs with wonderful fresh air. Hi, Lady Di. How are you? Glad to see you coming in from Facebook. And Diana says, she makes her to-do list. She adds people to connect with each day, and also reminding us that she does work out as well. So there are different things that people do. No, I just wanted to make one final shift. This is kind of like the second to last question for Sonia before we switch over to Natalie. Is one of the things that I think is a major underpinning in how people are responding to and reacting to this crisis is really ultimately a fear of death in a lot of respects. Not only necessarily your own death, but the death perhaps of a loved one. Because when you again watch the news with all of its facts, how many people die each day from this disease and what it's doing to families, ripping apart families and really giving us something in 2020 that no one would have bargained for. what would you say to individuals who are struggling with that kind of crisis? I know some people call it perhaps an existential crisis. I don't know if that's the correct nomenclature you would use. But
It
how would
certainly
you
is.
help with people who that is what really is in their space? It is this fear of death, fear of dying, and perhaps obviously not wanting to face that anytime soon. But how would you
Mhm.
support them in helping them to navigate that?
Yeah. You know, the thing about you are correct. It is an existential crisis and it has two components. It's not only the fear of death, but then with the fear of death comes this huge and profound and soul searching question of what's the foundation of my life to begin with and what did my life mean as well, is a question that can, because it's sometimes difficult to answer, it can create a tremendous amount of additional distress and hopelessness. In terms of dealing with that, um, again, I have to. It's really dealing with almost a more even intense sense of anxiety and helplessness. And so I have to bring us back again to being aware of your thoughts, being aware that of where your thoughts are directed, trying to acknowledge that, okay, I'm only looking at one side of the coin here. My life is more at risk today than it might have been in December 2019. What power do I have? What can I control? I know what I'm thinking about. What can I do about it? Questioning my thoughts to say, okay, what's a possible solution to help make myself safer? Again, Carrie Ann, it comes down to focusing on what you can control. And then in terms of finding meaning, this is where things like practicing gratitude, which is a very popular thing with the advent of gratitude journals and so on, becomes something that is very therapeutic. And how does one do that? It's about examine the different components of your life, the different people in your life, the different um, features that add to the quality of your life right now, such as vocations, family, friends, positive qualities, careers, connections in certain networks that you have, things that are wonderful in your life right now, and thinking about, boy, I'm fortunate to have these things in my life, and sometimes even listing them. That's why a gratitude journal is so powerful. It kind of forces your thinking in a different direction to embrace more of what's happening in your reality around you. Um, Extending yourself to others as well is a way of exercising now compassion. And what you're doing is actually trying to introduce into your emotional landscape emotions that can now buoy you up and introduce optimism, and that includes gratitude, that includes a sense of compassion as well. Compassion not only for yourself but for loved ones. So to the extent that you can, in your schedule, check in on somebody, extend yourself, do something for somebody as much as social distancing will allow. That connection helps to remind you that you do have meaning in your life. It's finding things meaningful, hobbies to do online, things that are curious, things to the extent you can maybe do at a course or something, or read upon something that creates a curiosity. You're introducing, again, as I said, into your landscape emotions that can help buoy you up at a time when a huge and overwhelming emotion that can make you feel like you're going to become undone is anxiety and panic. And managing your thinking, being able to introduce other emotions is a wonderful way to cope with some questions that we can't always answer.
Thank you for that, Sonia. And I do appreciate the need to that have that shift in perspective and things like having the gratitude journal, connecting with other people, exploring hobbies, reading new books. Everybody is on the web these days because we don't have much else to do. But YouTube is an awesome repository of videos like TED Talks and these kinds of things that introduce you to new ways of thinking or just new conversations, just something different, that to
Absolutely.
explore that you perhaps wouldn't have had the opportunity to explore before because time was always a factor.
Exactly.
So I think those are some really valuable gems. I mean, just as a final question, Sonia, before we wrap this segment and move over to Natalie, can you say where can we find resources for support? So I'm here. I'm again. It's a lot of curfewing going on, a lot of not restricted movement, and I may be struggling, or I may have a family member who's struggling, a child, what have you. What are some of the resources available, or where are they available that persons can reach out and get the help and support they need?
In terms of professional help, there is always, first of all, so sometimes your child, your loved one will be struggling and you don't have the answers, you're not quite sure what to do, and you think that maybe bouncing it off a professional or getting your loved one to speak to a professional might help. There's always a Jamaica Psychological Association. If you go to their website, there's a long list of not only clinicians who are available, but there are resources there that can help families, suggest to families ways of coping and so on. There's always, as you know, JMMB has a wonderful relationship with Family Life Ministries. They are still seeing clients virtually as well. So you can always call Family Life Ministries for help. And then again, as I said, in terms of resources, there are a lot of, believe it or not, there are even apps now that are helpful, the things that can help people, like you can't exercise, there's an app, there are apps, there are YouTube things that can help you with your exercise, with your mindfulness, with devotions, that sort of a thing. All of these things are therapeutic things that you can access online because they might have been cut out of your regular life before Corona. But those are some of the things that hop to mind right now. But also, if it ever comes to your needing a professional to support you in any way, I want to direct you again to Family Life Ministries or to the Jamaica Psychological Association, to their website. There you will find an abundance of clinicians available to help you. I should say also that the Jamaica Psychological Association is doing free virtual group sessions for certain groups of people. If you go to their website, you'll be able to group therapy sessions. You'll be able to participate and see what's available, and get support through that avenue as well.
Thank you so much, Sonia. That's really great information. So Family Life Ministries, and yes, I'm glad you underscored the point that there are things that can be done virtually, and getting help, fortunately, right now is one of them. So don't feel the need. You're going to have to find a way to get to somewhere. There are virtual meeting and support opportunities available, and you would have underscored Family Life Ministries and the Jamaica Psychological Association offering free group therapy sessions. So that's very valuable to know. And thanks again, guys, in the comments. Please continue to share. Candice, thank you so much for joining us from Facebook. She has a little nugget here for us. Exercising compassion has given me a sense of control and meaning. And, that's, I think, really powerful as well, because, again, this crisis and the resulting impact of pulling away and social distancing, sometimes we forget to think of the impact that it's having on others or what others are going through. And compassion really helps to, if nothing else, certainly contextualizes what you are experiencing.
Absolutely.
So keeps us connected as well. So
That's
thank
correct.
you so much, Sonia. We really appreciate your nuggets. Of course, we know you're not going to go away because we have to wrap at the end. But thank you so much for your very, very insightful nuggets. And I'm sure they've been very useful to some persons here who have been watching and needed all of this great information. Thank you.
Well, Kerry, thank you.
All righty, no problem. Okay, great. So we've just come out of an awesome conversation with Sonia where we were looking more so on the emotional and mental side of how to cope in the crisis. And I hope that you're able to get some great nuggets and we see some great comments coming in. And now we're going to switch to the physical side because, of course, as we mentioned at the top, keeping yourself well is a very important part of coping in this crisis also. So it's not just about the mental and emotional, it's also about the physical. It's almost, you could say, almost like the foundation for a lot of things that have to do with how you are trying to cope. And of course, with what's happening again with curfews and restricted movement and so on, a lot of that has impacted how we live our lives physically. And so we're going to be happy to now switch over the conversation to our very own health coach, our resident health coach for tonight. It's Natalie. Hey, Nats.
Hello. Hi, Carrie-Ann. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. So Natalie is a health coach and she's going to be taking us through the motion. So the first question is, Natalie, so I think one of the business ideas that everybody has taken away from this crisis when it's all over is that everybody needs to go open a supermarket because the supermarkets are cleaning up, right?
Yeah.
Man, everybody's doing a lot of food shopping, right? So we're doing a lot of food shopping, and yes, some of it was perhaps stocking up, yes, because I think everybody was kind of just waiting for that lockdown announcement to come, and certainly the parish of St. Catherine would have experienced that for a couple of weeks. But a lot of it is because, again, we can't go anywhere. We have to be preparing our meals if we want to eat, and so a lot of that buying is as a result of that. So, given that context of all this supermarket buying, the grocery shopping rather, and cooking all of our meals and so on, what are some of the tips that you have for people as they now look at doing more as it pertains to preparing their own meals at home?
Sure. So it's really interesting that you start off with that mass buying, because what I've found is that a lot of my clients they're snacking a lot more, and I think it's important for people to recognize that because you're safe at home and because you are, in your environment where food is accessible, does not mean that you will use eating as a coping mechanism. It's one of the unfortunate things that we tend to eat our emotions, and this is something that I address in my book that I just published just this week. That we tend to numb ourselves with things like food, like alcohol, snacking. We snack when bored, not just when we're hungry. And I think it's something that we need to be very mindful of. So what I've been recommending to a lot of my clients is to create a plan, like create a meal plan. And typically, when we were looking at meal plans before, people would be focused on, what am I going to have for lunch? And then what am I going to choose to have or what am I going to have for breakfast? And then what am I going to choose to have for lunch based on what my organization is offering me? But we're at home, so we really need to be planning in advance now, not just breakfast and dinner, but we need to also be planning what are we having for lunch. And I find that having a meal plan, and sitting down, if you have a family, sitting down as a family and deciding what's everybody having for that week, it takes a lot of the stress off of the person that's preparing the meals. Because I know, as a mom of 3, one of the most stressful questions is, what's for dinner? Right? And when it hits you out of the blue, it can really throw you off guard, because you're like, oh gosh, I didn't really make a good plan for dinner, So when you sit down as a family and plan out breakfast, lunch, dinner, and plan the snacks, right? So you actually have it on your meal plan and you're putting that up on your fridge. Everybody knows what's coming up for lunch, breakfast, dinner, and what their snacks are. So that takes the stress off of the person who's preparing the meals, and it also helps you plan. So one good thing, aside from knowing what you're going to be expecting, is that you can actually be planning your supermarket trips. because people tease me all the time that the supermarket is my place of socialization. And that's where I go to see all my friends because I'm almost there every day. I don't want to be there every day during this time that we're going through. So having your weekly meal plan that you prepare in advance, you're able to create your weekly shopping list. And however you're going to be executing that shopping list, like some supermarkets allow you to call in or email in, or they're even doing deliveries or curbside pickup. However you're managing your shopping, you're able to do it in a much more streamlined fashion. So you know what's going on for your meals. Your supermarket trips, shopping excursions are limited and more effective. And you're also able to do things like repurpose meals, so like whatever you have for dinner tonight, there's a little left over, you incorporate that into a salad tomorrow. So you can be a lot more thoughtful in what's going on.
Thank you. So I think the key takeaway for me is that it's really about planning, right? You can't just allow yourself to just kind of go with the flow and impulse buying and impulse cooking. It's really about planning things out and knowing what you can what you can do, what you should be doing, and how that can be integrated in what your current lifestyle reality is, bearing in mind if you have any family needs that you need to fulfill as well in terms of children, etc. Now, so that's the food side, just to kind of kick us off. But on the exercise side now, some of us are having mixed results in this time of COVID, right? So I have a couple of friends and colleagues who actually have been very, very diligent with keeping their physical workout routine at this time, and some not so much, unfortunately. Generally, I think the struggle is that people acknowledge that gyms are closed for the most part, and it's very, very difficult to therefore keep the fitness regimen going. But we know that it's very possible to work out at home. What are some of the home-based options you would recommend to people who want to keep physically active at this time?
Well, there are, I think we're really blessed that we're adjusting so well to what's going on in terms of having a lot of options out there. So I see Ashley on the line, and she's saying that she can't wait to join me on a spin bike again. For people that actually do have access to a spin bike or an indoor cycle at home, I actually teach a class twice a week, and it goes up on YouTube. So I know that's a limited crew, a limited crowd of people that have access to that. But there are some of our amazing gyms are offering services online. I know one of the gyms that I teach at, Yasa Fitbox, they do online stuff. Also JYM, Just You and Me Training. My daughter works out with them every evening at 5:00. And what I'm finding is that people are doing really affordable packages. So they recognize the challenges financially that's happening during this time. And they're also recognizing the importance of staying physically fit. So they're very affordable options with one-on-one. So you're getting that, that eye contact with your trainer kind of thing, which is important. I actually love the freedom and flexibility of just going onto YouTube and like searching for various classes. So if I feel like, boy, today I want to work my core, I'll do like 10-minute abs, do a search and come up with some stuff. And what's exciting is that you can every day be changing up your routine. You can be working out with a different trainer. So YouTube has a lot of free resources that I absolutely love. I do see the value in paying your trainer for that one-on-one or that group session that you're doing by Zoom, because they're going to keep you accountable. So you have to keep yourself accountable when you're going to go, do your at-home workout and promise yourself that you're going to do it. Whereas your trainer is going to say, hey, Nats, I didn't see you on the call today. What's going on? What I've been doing is I actually, like, my fridge is a repository of information at the moment, because I actually have like a little timetable up on my fridge and I check off when I do stuff. So I've got core, I've got cardio, and I've got strength training, and I've got yoga, like flexibility on there. And every time I do something, I check it. So I'm making sure that in a week, I'm getting a variety of core strength, cardio, and flexibility training in there. And I'd really recommend that people do that. Play around, like Google, have fun, check out things.
Thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate that. And again, it's about finding what works for you. So definitely,
Absolutely.
if personal training opportunities still out there, absolutely. Please, we encourage everybody to explore that. And then I love that you told us about YouTube. I actually got a text message from my mother who still tries to work out every now and again, and she's at sea because her gym is closed, and I had to introduce her to YouTube. So there are all those opportunities. And I'd love to underscore the physical activity, not only because, of course, it helps keep us nice and fit and maybe slim and trim, but your physical well-being and having that routine movement. Oh my God, those
Yep.
endorphins really benefit from that exercise. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch back to food a little bit. And, I'm looking again at the comments, guys. You guys are really giving some awesome nuggets. We see Diana here. Oops, I scrolled a bit too far away. I'm sorry, my finger moved too quickly. But Diana was saying, and we were talking about food, she has a strategy from Facebook. She says, my strategy is to pre-prepare almost everything and put them in the freezer. So when it's mealtime, from start to plate, it's 30 minutes. That's an awesome recommendation, Dana. And then her next point to that was that she says healthy snacks are also good. And you mentioned snacking earlier, and we know that sometimes being locked up at home, we eat sometimes out of boredom, unfortunately. But again, if we can manage the amount of snacks is one thing. But just generally, the types of foods that we should be eating right now, and again, we're in the middle of a pandemic and the possible health crisis that's on our doorstep that we're trying to avoid. I'm sure that you would advocate that there are certain types of foods that are not only energy giving, but also what do you call it now? Build your immunity. Yeah, let's just call it that. They really help to boost your immunity, which, hey, that's an awesome thing to do right now.
Yeah.
What are some of the foods that you encourage people to eat more of at a time like this?
That's a really good question, because what we feed our body is so important. We are like the ultimate machine, like the ultimate expression of life, like our bodies, and our bodies are with us from birth to death. And yet we've gotten to this place of, I'll just eat whatever, whenever, and it doesn't really matter what I'm going to eat as long as my belly is full. And that's such a bad plan, or that lack of plan is such a bad strategy. Right about now, we need to be eating to boost our immunity and to reduce inflammation. And we also need to be eating in a way that protects our gut health and encourages our gut health. So if I can address those three things. When we think of immunity, people tend to think of, oh, I don't want to get sick, let me take vitamin C. And maybe some people also go, let me take zinc. So let me focus on foods that are high in vitamin C and zinc. But that's one vitamin and one mineral. And what really goes towards an immune system working efficiently and optimally is that all systems of the body are working together. So as an integrative health coach, what I tend to look at is the whole body. So Sonia has addressed our mental state, and our mental state impacts our physical state, because our mental state impacts our emotions impact our hormones impact our gut health, and our gut health impacts our ability to absorb nutrients. So everything is tied together in a really impressive circle of our existence. So what we want to be focusing on eating is predominantly like a whole foods diet. So eating stuff that you get at the market. A tip and a trick is, when you do go to a supermarket, eat from the outside. So on the outside tends to be like the fruits and vegetables and things like that, as opposed to the packaged foods that you tend to find on the inside of the supermarket. So by outside, I mean the perimeter of the supermarket. So you want to be eating whole foods, whole grains, minimally processed. You want to be avoiding foods that have a lot of sugar. Someone mentioned that they're eating, snacks. Good snacks are prunes. Prunes are awesome for maintaining regularity. I'm a real advocate for fresh fruit over dried fruit whenever you can get fresh fruit, because just by drying out the fruit, you're upping the sugar content by at least tenfold. So we want to be going for fresh fruits and vegetables, aiming for like 5 cups of vegetables a day. And some of you may hear that and go, dear Lord have mercy, how am I supposed to eat 5 cups of vegetables? But if you get like a cup in your smoothie in the morning and you have like a small salad as a snack, or some, like carrot sticks or something as a snack, and then you have like a nice big salad with your nuts and your protein source for lunch, and then you're having like steamed vegetables with whatever else you're having for dinner, you can get in that 5 cups of vegetables. And that's so important, because your vegetables have like the variety of nutrients that you need, not just your vitamins, but also your minerals. When you're eating a diet that's high in plant-based products, that are high in vegetables, you're also working towards reducing the inflammation in your body. And when you get sick, one of the things that we need to be mindful of is, what's the underlying inflammation that's already pre-existing in your body? Are you aches and pains? Are you getting stiff joints in the morning? Because if you have a high level of inflammation just normally in your body, when you do get sick, that's going to be even more exacerbated. So we want to be eating foods that minimize our inflammation. So bringing in the herbs like the turmeric, bringing in the garlic, bringing in the onions, the ginger. These things are really important. Elderberry, is a great herb at boosting immune and reducing inflammation. Then we want to be looking at gut health. So are you pooping every day? I mean, I talk about poop with my clients so much. I hope that's not a taboo subject for this conversation, but it's so important that you're going to the bathroom daily. How do you do this? You maintain your regularity by having lots of fiber in your diet, maintaining a good level of hydration. So drinking like half your body weight in ounces of water a day, super important. And then eating foods that are rich in probiotics. So if you're not allergic to dairy or intolerant to dairy, including the natural yogurt, or taking a good probiotic every day, super important. Getting lots of fiber, black beans, chia seeds, hemp seeds, bringing the fiber in to maintain that gut health and that regularity is super important. I see Natasha saying that she cooks popcorn on the stove. Popcorn is an awesome snack. You want to make sure that if you are popping corn, that you are trying as much as possible to get a variety that's like organic or non-GMO, because that's just better for us. The genetically modified food is more difficult for our body to digest, and corn on a whole is difficult to digest. So wherever possible, we want to get the non-GMO.
Okay, great. Man, I'm telling you, I mean, all of those, the gut health one was what got me. And poop is not a bad word on this webinar, because, I mean, we tend to forget. And again, if you're at home, not a lot of movement going on, it may actually cause the bowels to slow a little bit sometimes. And we need to remember, we need to keep that system moving. And some awesome nuggets there. Just switching gears a little, I mean, still with food, and again, guys, we acknowledge all the great content, all the great comments. Sorry, this is great content, and we acknowledge the great comments that are coming in. And also, Andre from Facebook telling us, because we're talking about sources of workouts that you can do at home, and Andre telling us that Nike Running Club and Nike Training Club are good apps, because we also remember that in the world of apps, there's an app for that, there's an app for everything, and it's great. I actually also have a personal favorite in beachbody.com as an app that I actually personally use with scores and scores of different kinds of workouts. As you say, Natalie, you may get up today, you may feel to do some cardio today, strength, yoga, what have you. There are really lots of options out there. Great. Now let's just go still with food, back to the children. Any particular recommendations of what we should be preparing for our kids to ensure that they remain healthy throughout all of what we're going through at this point?
Yeah, it's really the kids, I find them always they're in the fridge snacking. So I have to remind them, like, just because we're home doesn't mean we eat nonstop. So we've actually implemented a little bit of a rule that they're only allowed to have 2 snacks a day. Something else that I overheard another mom doing in the Blissful Mommy group that's on Facebook, which is a great resource for parents. They're actually recommending that you pack your children's lunch kit as if they were going to school, so that the kids, the children, they know what they're having. So they've already had their breakfast, and then they're going to their lunch kit for lunch and snacks, and what's in there is what they're having, and not going to the fridge all the time. Get the children involved in sorting out what the meals are going to be for the week, because when the children are involved, they have more of a buy-in, and they're more likely to eat the healthy foods. What we do is we have every meal, you have to have a vegetable. So, okay, the adults, we're aiming for the 5 cups a day. Children are not going to have 5 cups of vegetables, but we try to get as much vegetables in as possible. So with every meal, even if it is a leaf of lettuce, we're trying to get some vegetables in with every meal, minimizing their crispy, crunchy, pre-snack things that are come in bags, like the Cheetos and Doritos and all these foods that have like the chemicals and stuff in there, because those salty chemicals that are loaded with food colorants and dyes and sugars and artificial this and that, it's throwing off the children's ability to concentrate. And the homeschooling is challenging enough on its own. We really want to be feeding our children a diet that is going to enhance their capacity to learn. So making sure that you've got the healthy snacks in the house. Bananas are great, apples are great, yogurt is great, even cheese and crackers, peanut butter if they don't have peanut allergies, almond butter, things like that. Making sure that you've got stuff in the house that is healthy for the children, and that they're eating balanced meals, that they're not just grazing all day and snacking all day. It's so easy because everybody's home to just kind of roll out of bed, you're in your pajamas, and then you roll onto your Zoom classroom. No, you need to have a breakfast. You need to have a lunch, you need to have a dinner, and the meals need to occur at your dining room, because studies show that when you eat and walk around the house, or eat in front of the TV, or you're on your couch, you're going to eat. It's called mindful eating. So you want to be aware, and when you're sitting down to your meal, you want to be having your meal, and that's the main focus, that's the main activity that you're doing. So when you're eating because you're like hiding yourself from the Zoom call, you have your picture up, and you're just eating in the background, or you're eating or watching TV or whatnot, you're not actually enjoying your meal, and you're not registering the fact that you are full when you're full, and you're not actually digesting properly. So you want to be having your meals at the dining room table, things like that. Other tips for children is cutting off, like making sure that they're not snacking up until bedtime, so that they are getting a proper bedtime, and that they're, we sit down as a family and say our grace before the meal, because that helps to calm you down and bring it together as a family. And then you're having your dinner, and then, you're moving on to your evening activities. Really important for the children to maintain routine. Really important for the adults to maintain routine as well. So cutting off your eating at least 2 or 3 hours before bedtime is super important. Not drinking water with your meals is something else I like to advocate, because when you drink your water with
Really? Uh-oh.
yeah, when you drink water with meals, you're diluting your digestive enzymes, and therefore you're not truly unlocking all of the amazingness that's coming in your meal, right? You're not able to access all those nutrients.
Really?
Yes, if you find yourself really full or burpy after a meal, try cutting out the liquids with the meal and see what happens.
Wow, that's a great tip. I did not know that. Awesome. And then you said we shouldn't be eating within 2 to 3 hours of going to bed?
Yeah, it's good to cut off. Yeah, it interferes with you don't need to fuel up if you're going to go lie down, right?
Yeah. Good point. point. Thank you. Okay, so final question for Natalie before we move on. Natalie, so just going again, because talk about scheduling and it's good to stick with a schedule and a routine, etc. Back to the point about working out and exercising. Is there is there a best time of day that one should be exercising? I mean, how do we just go about integrating that into our daily routine?
That's a great question. So that's sort of like the question about what's the best type of exercise to do. So the best type and the best time are the types and times that you're actually going to stick to. So if you know yourself and you know you are a wake up and go person, then morning is a great time for you to work out. And truthfully, if you're going to choose and if you're okay with working out whenever, morning is the best time to work out. That said, my teenager has been working out pretty regularly, almost every day. And she works out at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because she's not a morning person. She's more of an afternoon into the evening person. That works for her. So the short answer is the best time is the time that you're actually going to do it and do it regularly. So trying to incorporate exercise into your routine, knowing what it is that you have to do. Because, I think a lot of us we're safe at home, we're working from home, we're trying to get everything done that we need to do. But we don't have, not everybody is bored. Not everybody is just like, oh, what am I going to do today? A lot of us we're still trying to keep active and busy and drumming up business, especially us entrepreneurs. So we do have schedules. And if we know all the things that we need to get done in a day, and if we can just figure out when best do we feel our most energetic, then that's really the best time for you to be working out. I find cardio and strength training activities are best in the morning. Strength training activities might be really good after having had a small meal before. Cardio, you can pretty much do on an empty stomach. I find strength training needs, especially if you want to get good results from your strength training, you're going to need a small meal in your tummy to give you the energy. I love recommending that you do your stretching and your yoga type activities, your Pilates, maybe in the evening hours, because now you're trying to wind down, you're trying to, release the stress of the day. So evening is a great time for yoga. But truly, figuring out when you're actually going to do it. And you know what, Carrie-Ann and everyone else that's online, a workout doesn't have to be an hour and a half. Like if you can drum up the motivation to get 10 minutes in, do the 10 minutes. It's important. Walking is great. Jumping jacks, running around the living room, lunges, walking up and down lunges. There's so many things that you can do at home. The trick is to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Can't stress that enough.
I love it. Keep moving, because it's so tempting to stop moving when you're not to move.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's great advice. And again, I love that last point. It doesn't have to be an hour and a half. I know I personally do 20 minutes most days. And I find a 20-minute workout that works for me. And as a busy mom, juggling work, that's 20 minutes, If you can do the hour and a half, absolutely do it for me. But don't feel no way if you can't find an hour. I can't find an hour to work out. There are always ways that you can, get that workout in, if it's just 20 minutes, 30 minutes, what have you.
Absolutely.
Natalie, these were some very insightful tips. As we're talking about kids, I see Natasha again sharing her story from Facebook that her children, they're older, obviously, they're 19 and 18. Natasha says that they're cooking delicious meals, which of course gives them life skills. So they've been looking up recipes, they get the ingredients and have gotten really creative. And of course, it saves time for her and hubby to cook. But I think it's a great point, because even my 9-year-old has actually gotten more involved in the meal preparation as well, because we do have that time. There's no rush in the mornings to get out the door necessarily. You can kind of take your time and involve them in the breakfast preparation and so on. And I know, Natalie, I've seen you online with your daughter doing stuff together and preparing meals. So it's another opportunity again to bond with those that you are being forced
Spend
with. Spend a lot of time with. Hey, it's an activity. It's awesome. Great, great. Thank you so much, Natalie. Really appreciate those nuggets. All right. So I know Natalie is going to mute, but she's still going to stick around and come back to say goodbye. And then our final segment, which of course is going to be a little different, but at JMMB, we like to mix it up as always because we are believing that to cope in this crisis is about dealing with the whole person. And so we invited Trishan Horton, who is a therapeutic yoga teacher.
Hi.
Hi, Trishan. So let me warn our viewers first of all. We logged on an hour before. So normally when we do these lives, guys, we log on an hour before we go live just to do our technical checks and so on and audio checks. And there is something ringing in Trishan's mic, and we don't know what it is. We're just taking it as good vibrations.
It's my effervescence and all my goodness.
That's coming out through the
I
mic.
don't know what else it could be.
Absolutely. So I'm just gonna warn everybody ahead of time that you may hear an intermittent kind of a ringing, humming sound, but it's good vibrations. We'll take it as that. And as Trisha says, our effervescence coming through. So bear with us, but we can definitely hear you, Trishan, which is the most important thing. And we know that you are a yoga therapist, and part of what you do is you help people to unwind and relax, right? And that's what we really want to share this evening, But before, because we know you've set up your camera to do a quick demo for us, so we're looking forward to that. But before,
guys, grab your chairs at home.
absolutely. So, guys, get yourself ready. She's going to be sharing some great techniques. But before we do that, Trishan, again, you're a therapeutic yoga teacher. For those of us who are not very familiar with yoga, could you tell us what the benefits of yoga are?
Absolutely. So, you definitely don't have enough time for me to tell you all of them. But in terms of, right now, and our current environment, one of the biggest benefits would be that it is accessible for all. And what do I mean by that? So your kids can do yoga. If you have one foot, you can do yoga. And especially for those persons who had some conditions prior to COVID. So persons who were in cancer treatment, they were seeing their clinicians for anxiety or depression, seeing your medical doctor for hypertension, for heart stuff. These persons who right now might not be able to have the same level of access, then your therapeutic yoga is a great complement to, if you are seeing them online, it doesn't quite feel the same probably. And so it's a great complement to manage your possible symptoms for many of these pre-existing things. As I said before, in terms of the kids, and Sonia really spoke to how the anxiety might be presenting itself right now in our kids. They're completely out of their routine, and a lot of them are very sensitive right now to the energy that they're picking up from us, and to the fact that they're not seeing their friends anymore. They're just home. And if they do have the distant learning platform, if they do have access to that, then it is still a very different kind of setup. You're just sitting and looking at a screen pretty much all day. And so they're also stressed out, and how they would normally be able to manage their stress, so to speak, is being on the playground, ramping, shouting, screaming, releasing that physically. And so now that is definitely limited. And so yoga is a great benefit here. And guess what? If you just log in and let them go to the yoga, it's a great benefit to the parents who now have those 40 minutes free to themselves. So the other benefit is that right now, many people are stuck in the couch, stuck at the desk, typing or on the phone, the neck is craning or staring at the computer. And so we're developing some patterns in our body right now, if we're not careful, of our posture, or, we slouching forward, the neck is, we're constantly looking down at the phone instead of looking straight ahead. So we begin to see those things take effect, especially for those persons who were already working in an office setting. And as a society, on a whole, we definitely sit too much anyway. So now it's exacerbated. Even me as a yoga teacher, I am now doing live classes, trying to figure out things. I'm on my computer, my devices way more. So now we have some patterns being, some places that kind of feel a little hitch up when you wake up in the morning, because you kind of lying in the couch a little more, you might have some aches and pains in the back. So one benefit right now is that it helps us to kind of reverse some of what we might be having to do during the day, how we might be positioning our body, keeping the joints and the muscles nice and supple, keeping our posture or chest or breath big and beautiful. And then the third thing I would say is that it's helping us to manage our emotions, because right now, as we've spoken about before, there's a lot going on. And so yoga definitely allows you to have that time where you just come into the present moment and you're not listening to the news or replaying what you listened to on the news earlier. You're not everywhere else. Yeah. And just by breathing, just by moving your body, we find ourselves, especially if you go and do it outside, breeze blowing, the trees, the sunshine, all these wonderful things, we find ourselves better able to kind of just cope and manage our emotions and just, dial it down a notch.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, it's really interesting to hear all the different benefits of yoga, and of course the breathing that goes along with it, and how it really helps us to deal with a lot of the stress and kind of bring ourselves down, from the
Yeah.
very, peak of anxiety and just overall feelings of just feeling perhaps even overwhelmed at times. Yoga, the breathing that goes along with it is awesome. So I know everybody is excited. I know Felicia is saying she's ready in her chair. So Trishan, we're going to hand over to you for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's get right to it. I mean, no time like the present, right?
Let's get right to it. All right. So I'm going to begin by just showing you guys a lovely breathing technique. So when you find yourself at some point during the day getting a little, agitated, a little things are feeling a little explosive or, implosive, this particular breathing technique is wonderful. Wonderful. In fact, just bringing your attention to the breath does wonders for you. So what you're going to do, and I'm going to give you two options. What you're going to do is stick your tongue out and curl your tongue. Not everybody is able to do this, and so I'll show you the second option. So you stick your tongue out and curl the tongue like that. If you are not able to do it, some of us are genetically unable to do that, then just go ahead and keep the teeth slightly separate and inhale through the teeth. So whether it's through the teeth or through the tongue, here's what it looks like. You're going to inhale through the tongue or teeth, and then bring the tongue in or close the mouth, exhale out the nose. And we're going for 9 rounds on average of that breath, okay? You can close your eyes or leave them open. So sticking the tongue out. Exhaling out the nose. Keep the breath nice and slow and steady, and try to keep the inhale and the exhale even. Two more to go. So I already feel brand new. I don't know about you guys. So I am now going to move to your chair. If you did get your chair, go ahead and grab it and join me over on the mat. All right, so you're just gonna move towards the edge of your chair, and bring your ankles right under the knees, ankles right under the knees. Now there are some places in the body that we commonly tend to hold stress. Of course, each person is different, but I'm just gonna give you a quick, easy in the chair experience that will at least knock on the door of those places that we most commonly hold, or stress and tension. All right, so knees are right over the ankles, sitting at the edge of the chair. You can hold on to the side of the chair or bring your hands here. And we're going to inhale to lift the heart, lift the chest, and look up. Exhale and dome the back. You want to feel like you're exhaling through the back. We're going for 5 rounds of that. So inhaling, lifting the chest, and exhaling, doming the back. And I'm just going to show you from the side. So inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, doming the back. One more. Inhaling, lifting the chest. Exhaling, doming the back. And then we come back to center. So we go ahead and reach the arms all the way up. We want to get into the shoulders. So the shoulders and the neck is definitely one of those places. And I found, especially in women, I can't quite tell you why, but from my experience, especially in women, the neck and shoulders tend to get stiff. So we're interlacing the hands. We're going to reach them all the way up. Squeeze them up towards the ears and then release the shoulders down towards your chair. All right, reach those arms all the way up, and you're going to go ahead, drop your right hand with your left, reaching over to the side so you can feel that stretch and opening, and you want to imagine your ribs kind of separating and making even more space for your beautiful breath. We're coming over to the other side, so bringing your left hand down, right hand goes up. And you want to keep your bottom even and steady on your chair. Don't fall. And don't let the right side lift up. So reaching over, keeping that breath steady. And coming back to center. And there's a move that I like to call screwing the light bulb. So you want to make your hands like that as if you're literally going to screw in a light bulb. Extend the arms, keep them straight, and relax the shoulders. And we're going to screw the light bulb by rotating the arms. So the movement doesn't just come from the wrist, it's all the way up to the shoulders. Okay, so we screw in the light bulb, keeping the arms straight, screw in the light bulb, coming all the way up, all the way up. And we're going all the way back down. Take your time, there's no rush. Rotating the arms fully in each direction. All right, and just shake them out. So the next place that we want to touch on are the hips. The hips is definitely one of those places where we hold and hoard a whole lot of stuff. All right, so quick and easy way to do that. We're just gonna cross the legs. Easy breezy, most people are able to do this. And if for whatever reason this becomes painful or difficult for you, you can just extend that standing leg so you come a little lower with this leg, okay? So same ankle under your knee, you lift your right leg, cross the right ankle over the left leg. And you're just pressing the thigh towards the floor. If you're feeling nice and comfortable here, you can begin to fold forward. Keep leading with your heart, keep leading with the chest. So you're folding forward as much as is comfortable for you. And if you go all the way, if you stay right here, either way it's fine. So we're going to fold forward. And you can hang out however you're comfortable because the work is happening in the hips. So we're taking 2 more breaths here. We're coming back up. We're going to switch sides. So now we're bringing our left ankle across the top of the right thigh. Gently press the thigh towards the floor. And then moving forward, leading with the heart, leading with the chest. And you're going to come as far as you want to go. Keep those breaths nice and deep. Keep breathing in and out through the nose. Two more breaths. We exhale. Release the leg. All right, we're going to come to standing. So make sure your chair is somewhere where it won't slip. A good idea is to put the chair against the wall so that it doesn't have anywhere to go to. I have my mat. So you're going to hold on to the sides of the chair and just walk the legs back until the ankles are under the hips. Walk the legs back until the ankles are under the hips. And then walk them back some more. So you're coming into your chair downward dog. And this is a great stretch for the hamstrings, which is another place that does tend to tighten up, especially with all the sitting. So we're pulling the shoulders back away from the chair and stiffen the legs, engage the legs. Good, now we're gonna pull the belly in and bring your right foot forward. Put that right foot under the seat of the chair. And your left foot, that left heel, the back heel, stays down. So if you do need to bring your foot a little bit in, depending on how tight the back of the legs are, go ahead and do that. You can bring the leg in a little bit, but make sure that back heel is pressing. So we're looking straight ahead, always leading with the heart. And we're gonna fold forward, bringing our forearms down to the chair. For those of you who have more room, more flexibility, you can bring your hands down to the feet of the chair. I'm gonna hang out here today. So this is where we are. Keep the shoulders pulling back, and you're gonna take 4 big breaths here. Keep engaging that front thigh especially. Excellent, we come back to downward dog. And we'll switch legs. So once again, set up yourself so that the back heel is pressing into the floor. So if you need to step the leg in a little bit, by all means, please do. So we're pulling the belly in, engaging that front thigh, leading with the heart, slowly bringing our forearms down. Now, it is true that for some people, this will be enough, and that's great. For some people, you can maybe put a directory or a book because the seat of the chair is too low, but this part is too high, right? So just get creative. We gotta do that now that we're at home. Forearms to the chair, thigh engaged, belly pulling in, leading with the heart. 4 breaths, in and out through the nose. Back to our downward dog. we come back to standing. Our last pose, this is a really juicy one. I won't stay there too long because then I'll fall asleep as well. You're gonna sit by your chair, swing the legs up onto your chair. And relax. Whew. And guys, you can stay here for as long as you want when you're doing this on your own. And if you forget everything else and only remember this is such a great pose for stress and tension because it releases the psoas, which is a muscle that tightens whenever we're under stress and anxiety. It's great for your back. It's great if you're having headaches. This pose is like, it's great for everything. And if you're in it right now, you know what I'm talking about. So we just take a few deep breaths here, or you can even come back to the breath that we began with. When you're ready to move, go ahead, bring the feet to the edge of the chair. You can just roll over onto your side and gently, gingerly push yourself to sitting up. So that was everybody's little 2 cents of yoga today.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I just really wanted to remind everybody that when it comes to the breathing, even if it is that you can't remember anything that I just said, when it comes to being mindful of the breath, literally just bringing your attention to it, noticing the breath, it goes into my chest, it goes into the belly. The moment you begin to do that, you take yourself out of fight or flight. And whenever we're in times like this, crisis times, stress times, we are in our fight or flight response. We're in survival mode. And in survival mode, it's the survival mode, the fight or flight hormones that get released, all these things. When in actuality, and that would be fine if we were actually going to go and, tackle a bear or do something with that energy. But we're not. We're at home with our families. They are not bears. Okay? They are not bears. So
I'm kidding.
Sometimes, but mostly. The truth is you're probably the bear in the house. But you want to come out of fight or flight and move into rest or digest. Move into that place where your body understands that, oh yeah, I'm not under attack, right? And that will definitely boost immunity, your mental health, your life. You'll be a better human.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Prashan. That was really, really very valuable. I see Audrey here from YouTube saying, really good. The breaths have her falling asleep. Audrey, I hope you're still with us.
Yes.
She did that about 12 minutes ago. But thank you so much, Trishan. It's really great to also get some very practical ways in which we can just really just stop and just breathe and use the opportunity, use some of the techniques. And of course, even though this is a live stream, we are recording it. So we're going to be posting it on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So we can play this over and over again and do the
perfect
techniques, the poses and the stretches and the techniques all over again.
And they can all be held much longer, because you'll have the time at home.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you so much, Trishan. We really appreciate your contribution here to this discussion. And before we wrap, I just want to say one final bit of housekeeping matters. It's really having to do with when our next live is going to be. So today's Tuesday, the 5th of May, and we're going to have our next live on a very unique day of the week. It's actually going to be this Saturday, Saturday the 9th of May. And I'm going to probably kind of quickly tell you why. So, of course, again, we're exploring the topics that we believe you would like to hear to help you navigate through the COVID-19 crisis. And again, one of the big topics, and we kind of alluded to it in this session about coping, one of the big topics is relationships. So whether you're living alone, whether you're living with extended family members, living with a spouse, living with children, whatever the case may be, this is an opportunity, we believe, to build relationships. I know that we've been seeing a lot of headlines coming out of other countries. China, who is perhaps the first to come out of lockdown because they were in the crisis sooner than we were. You see headlines talking about divorce rates have spiked coming out of lockdown because married couples who are literally locked together for protracted periods of time really probably realize that, you know, this is just not it. And divorce rates are spiking, apparently, the news is saying. We believe this is an opportunity to build relationships, and that's going to be our next topic. So this Saturday, the 9th of May, we're going to be presenting another JMMB Goal Getter live stream webinar where we're going to be talking about building relationships, whether it be families, singles, or couples. And we're very, very excited to have as our special guest presenters on that day will be Paul and Jill Brunson. And Paul and Jill, they are just awesome people. A lot of you, if you're a member of the JMMB family, have been following JMMB for some time, you know that they are part of the JMMB family as well. Paul would have come to Jamaica last year for Elevate 2019. He was one of our guest speakers there, our keynote speaker. And he and his wife will be joining us on the Goal Getter live stream this Saturday. It's going to be at 12:30 p.m. Jamaica time. And again, all of this is done for a reason, folks, because Paul and Jill, they're actually in London, England. So we really couldn't do an 8:30 p.m. Goal Getter live, as nice as that would have been, because, hey, it would be like 3 o'clock in the morning over there. So we're not going to do an 8:30 p.m. And also we thought it prudent to have it on a Saturday because, let's face it, during the week, it's work from home, it's working, it's homeschooling. You know, we said, let's have it on a day when we figured most folks would be able to just focus without the hustle and bustle of what happens on a regular working day if we had to have it in the day. So this Saturday, the 9th of May, live streaming on JMMB's platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're going to be talking about building your relationships during COVID-19, families, singles, and couples, with our special guests, Paul and Jill Brunson. So please mark your calendars, follow us on social media for all the latest updates, and we look forward to seeing you then. So, of course, we're going to wrap this session. This was a really, really diverse and interesting discussion. We'd love to see all of our guests come back up on screen. We have Sonia Winter, our clinical psychologist, Sonia, who took us through how to cope emotionally and mentally. We had Natalie Murray, our health coach, taking us through our physical side, diet and exercise. And then we had Trishan, who really took us through the motions with some awesome yoga techniques and breathing exercises to help us to de-stress and relax quite a bit. We really appreciate you all, ladies, for taking the time during curfew from your respective homes to share with us really, really very insightful tips and nuggets and awesome discussion. Guys, in the comments, could we have a round of applause for our guest speakers, us acknowledging their contribution? Please acknowledge them. We thank them so much. Of course, we have, you know, how to find them on social media. Well, certainly Natalie and Trishan would have had their social media handles. Sonia, if we were to reach out to you, how can we find you? Through Family Life, perhaps? Sorry.
Yes, you can find me at Family Life. You can also find me at SoniaWinterAssociates.com.
Great. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Yes. Thanks, guys. Odian and Shanique, everybody saying thank you. It was really an awesome session. And we just wish everybody the best. And again, please remember, we're not going through this alone. We're going through this together. We will get through this together. And we just encourage everybody just to continue to be aware of yourself, your loved ones, seek the help where you need it, and just take it one day at a time. Yes, that's I would say would be the final nugget. Thank you so much, ladies. Have an awesome rest of the evening. Thank you again to all of our viewers commenting on social media. Absolutely great information. We see the applause coming in. Thanks again, everybody, and please continue to stay safe, and we'll see you back here Saturday on the 9th, 12:30 p.m. Good night, everybody. Take care.